Inspirational Creatives, episode 189.
I think the fact that I had to suffer a lot in my personal life, I think it makes me very compassionate towards my clients.
Welcome to Inspirational Creatives. I'm your host, Rob Lawrence. Join me every Friday as I chat with successful artists, producers, and creative entrepreneurs who share powerful stories and strategies. They can help you to create the life that you want. Listen each week as these inspirational creatives show you how to take your creativity to the next level. You'll learn how to create a sustainable business that inspires others and gives you the financial freedom and lifestyle that you want. Thanks for listening. Make sure you sign up at inspirationalcreatives.com to get free exclusive bonus material. And now, on with the show. Rob here, and welcome to another episode of Inspirational Creatives. My guest today is somebody who can help you to make a great first impression by developing a 15-second pitch. She was kindly introduced to me by recent guest Ariel Hyatt, and according to her website, thepitchgirl.com, she allegedly once sent a 3-foot-tall steel pyramid to Star Wars director George Lucas, yielding a $60 million deal for her client. Today, I'm delighted to have her on the show as somebody who can help us to refine our focus when it comes to offering our creative work to others, and as somebody who has made a living doing what she loves from her own creative abilities. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you today, Laura Allen. Laura, welcome.
Thank you, Rob. That was quite the intro. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Is there anything you'd like to add to that intro to give our listener a sense of who you are?
Well, I would say this. I haven't always been able to make a living doing what I love. Okay. So I just want to be upfront about that.
That's fabulous. Well, I'm looking forward to getting into your own story. So for those yet to meet you, Laura, how would you describe what it is you do in the world today?
What I do, and well, I'll just give you my 15-second pitch. And it goes something like this. I'm Laura Allen, and I am the pitch girl. I help my clients pitch themselves in just 15 seconds so that they can get the sale, job, or publicity that they want. And what that ultimately means is I help people promote themselves in a way that's comfortable for them. So not everybody is comfortable jumping over the table like Tony Robbins and, being all extroverted. And that's okay. You don't have to be someone that you're not. You can find a way that's comfortable for you. So that's what I spend my days doing, is finding ways for people to promote themselves that it's a little bit out of their comfort zone, but they create a new comfort zone to support it.
That sounds really intriguing, and I'd love to ask you more about that. But before we do, I'd love to learn a little bit more about you and how you got into the work that you do today. You mentioned just then that you haven't always been able to create a living doing what you love. So how's your journey unfolded as to what it is that you do today?
I think part of my journey is the fact that I went to college for writing and literature, which is not the fastest way to make a living, I would say. So I started off as a receptionist at a publishing company, and I was answering a 24-line switchboard. That was one of the hardest jobs I ever had. And I just kept thinking, there has to be a better way. There has to be an easier way. And once I started thinking about the internet, I really fell in love with this idea that you could talk to people from around the world. You could email people from around the world. I started to get very interested in that. And then I went to work for an ad agency that was very much like Mad Men, a lot of crazy people and insane working conditions. But what I learned was that if you had a good pitch, if you had a compelling pitch, you could make a lot of money for your client. You didn't make a lot of money because you just got paid whatever you got paid, and you got worked to death. But if you could pitch well, then you could do okay for yourself. So I started to think, what if I started to work with individuals and I helped them get a better job, get better PR, sell their services? That would be meaningful to me. So that's sort of how I got into this journey.
Amazing. So I'd love to get into the essence of what it takes to create a powerful pitch. But before we go there, a little bit more about you in terms of like your Twitter bio, for example, has some bold claims like you've been able to close a $5.5 million deal from a cold call. And also, I was fascinated by this story on your website about you sending this artifact to George Lucas and closing a rather large sum for your client there. Can you tell me about some of those instances and what you learned from those?
Sure. The cold call, the $5.5 million deal from a cold call came from utter necessity, as most things do. I was working at the ad agency, and you're only as good as the last deal that you close. So I was working on my current client pitches, and I was helping them. I was very overworked, and I knew that I had to bring in more business if I wanted to keep my job. So I was home on Christmas break, and my father handed me an article from the local newspaper, Syracuse, New York, and it talked about a new company that was called the Young Adult Professional Association. And it talked all about how they were going to help college kids prepare to get real jobs. And my dad said, well, that sounds like something you'd be interested in. And I said, yes, it totally is. And I was a little bit bored because I was used to working really hard. So I'm on vacation in upstate New York. So I decided to cold call this company and let them know, hey, I work at a tiny ad agency in New York. I'll be flying back to New York tomorrow. I have 1 hour. Can I come in and meet with you? And to my great surprise, they said, yes, come in. You know, we already hired another agency, but come in. We're happy to talk to you, let you know about it. And we were able to get a fairly large deal. That $5.5 million didn't go into my bank account, by the way. It was, you know, their ad buy and, you know, the services of the ad agency that I work for, things like that. But once I put together that pitch, it really gave me confidence that I could put together other pitches. I think that was a pivotal moment in my career, just having the guts to do that. I was shaking when I got on the phone. I was so nervous. You know, I wrote out my little pitch, so I knew what I was going to say, but I was really nervous. I was really nervous when I went to meet this guy. And I think getting past that has allowed me to do what I do want to do for a living and make a living at it.
And help others with that too.
Yes.
What was at the heart of that deal? Was it an advertising deal?
Yes. Advertising, PR, getting the word out about this new company and their offering. Things used to be a lot different. So if you would pay to get PR, you would get some good placements and things would happen for you. That's not really the case anymore. Journalists don't look at press releases the way they used to. So that's part of the reason why you want to be able to promote yourself and your product or service or art, whatever it is, jewelry. You need to be able to do that for yourself, because the world of PR has changed so much over the years.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about that, but let's get into some of the nitty gritty first.
Sure.
What's at the essence of being able to create a great pitch?
The essence is having absolute clarity about what you're offering. And it sounds simple, but I think that people complicate things a lot of the time. They don't have confidence in what they're offering and that people would actually spend money on it. So they make things more complicated than they need to be.
And why do you think we do that? What are the common kind of traits that you see with clients that start to cloud our focus?
I think it's when they start having too much jargon in their pitch. They're in a very specific industry, maybe they're in technology and they have a lot of phrases that would only be meaningful to somebody else who is also in that line of work. So I think you have to make it clear for anyone, you know, make it so easy that a sixth grader can understand what you're talking about, which is hard, obviously.
Absolutely, yeah. It's one of these things, isn't it? When you do something so well, it looks easy, but actually to get there, it's usually quite difficult. Do you think it's a case of sometimes we get a bit caught up with looking at what everybody else is doing and trying to emulate that rather than just focusing in on what we're about?
Yes. Absolutely. I'll give you a quick example of the idea of simplicity can be a great thing. I once met a woman at a networking event, and I was presenting on how to give your 15-second pitch, and she stood up, and her pitch, the crux of her pitch was she's a freelance writer and she's never missed a deadline. And when you hear that, you're like, some people would say, well, obviously you'd be out of business in 3 minutes if you missed a lot of deadlines. But when you start working with freelancers, sometimes they take on too much work and they do overpromise and underdeliver. So just this simple pitch, I think she mentioned she had been writing for 15 years and she'd never missed a deadline, and people lined up to get her card.
Wow.
So it's that very simple pitch, but it was very compelling. I have another client and his pitch is, I'm a web designer that won't disappear on you. I've had the same email address for 15 years. I've had the same phone number for 15 years. Because if you've worked with web designers like I have, sometimes they wander off and you can never find them again. So that's part of Kevin's pitch. And it's been very effective because a lot of people have experienced that.
So is it sometimes a case of like finding out what the common problems or pain points are for a market or for a bunch of clients, and then kind of working back from there in terms of saying, look, this is what I do, but I also overcome this common challenge that you have if you try and hire people like me?
Yes. You can talk about the pain, or you can talk about what you really want to do for people. So I have another friend, his name is Ori, and he does dog portraits. So you might say to yourself, that's not a pain point that I feel that I need to have a painting of my dog, but he does it in a very specific way. So, you know, people are very close to their pets. And if a pet passes away, what people will do sometimes is hire Ori to do a painting of someone's beloved dog. And it's a really meaningful gift to that person. It's like, oh, wow, I have this portrait of my best friend who passed away. So from the outside, you look at it and you're like, oh, dog portraits, it's kind of easy to judge. But if you have this really close relationship and you work with him, he adds something to that portrait. There's going to be something about your relationship with your dog that is different, and it's very meaningful to the person that gets this this gift. So he has these testimonials on his website where people talk about crying when they receive this gift. It's very meaningful because he takes the time to figure out, okay, what does this person want? What is going to be useful to them? I kind of love that.
Yeah, I like that too. And I think what resonates with me there is this is about creating a pitch which is focused in a way that it speaks directly to the person rather than a bunch of people.
Yes.
So with that all in mind then, how do we achieve a greater level of clarity and focus? How do we start to clear some of the clutter that's going on in our mind when it comes to developing a more succinct pitch?
I think the most valuable concept that I've come up with, at least this is what my clients tell me, is the idea of having a pitch for every niche. Pitch for every niche. And what that means is you can create several different pitches. Because most of the people I work with, you know, they might have a side hustle, they might have a day job. They're doing a couple different things to pay the rent. And ultimately, a lot of them would like to be doing one main thing to pay the rent and maybe have one or two side hustles. So the no risk way to test this out is to create a pitch and to see what people are willing to pay for. That's the hard part. You can do what you love, you know, that old phrase, do what you love and the money will follow. And I always say, do what you love and the money will follow, but it might be 100 years from now. You have to have the courage of your convictions to ask for the sale. Otherwise, you're just giving things away. Ori could give away his pet paintings. He could just give them away and not have to worry about the sale. But he wants to make a living painting. So he has to ask for the sale.
I love this idea that your pitch could almost be, in sort of entrepreneurial terms, a minimum viable product in that sense.
Yes.
And you can throw it out there to see what resonates and see what people buy into. And you could almost A/B test your own pitches against different crowds and audiences and see what works and what doesn't. But let's come back to this point that you just mentioned there, which is this fee versus free mindset. And it's actually about completing the sale, because it's all well and good having a strong pitch and then getting somebody's interest. But I know from my own personal experience that sometimes it can be be a lengthy, and it gets shorter with practice, obviously, but it can be a lengthy process to then engage that person to where you have a fee-paying arrangement. What have been some of the experiences that you've had working with creative entrepreneurs and also in your own experience about this kind of fee versus free mindset?
That's a great question, and that's something that a lot of people struggle with. And I have kind of a controversial take on this, which is it's very simple, really. Stop giving it away. Stop giving your time, your art, your jewelry, your music. Stop giving it away for free. You need to get comfortable asking for the sale. It's very hard to give things away to people and then try to convert that into a sale. It's much easier to start off and say, you know what, I'm going to create this painting for you. It's $500 and deal with the discomfort of the person saying $500, I would never spend $500 on that, which usually doesn't happen. They usually say, oh, you know what, I really don't have the money right now. So if you get comfortable with that, you're going to get a lot more sales a lot faster. It's getting comfortable with hearing no. No, I can't do this. No, I don't want to do this. Well, what they're ultimately saying is, I don't see the value in what you're providing. And that's really harsh. But if you give it away for free, which I did for years and years and years, here's what you'll find out. The people that I'm giving away my consulting services to, they don't value it. They don't value it, so they don't follow my expert opinion. At least at a certain point, I felt like it was expert advice. They don't follow it, so they're not successful. So it didn't help me and it didn't help them. That's when things totally shifted for me in my business, is when I realized I'm giving it away, but it's not helping them.
Yeah, it's not helping them appreciate the value of what you're offering in that sense.
Right.
Going back to that time, what were the steps that you took to start building the confidence to be able to start asking people for the sale?
I just had to do it. I had to have the courage of my convictions. I started doing this work, this idea of creating a 15-second pitch. I started doing it in 2002 and 2003. So it's been a long time. So I know that this concept works for people. Once I knew that it worked, from the people I did give it away to who did actually use it, the couple of people, then I was very confident to say, look, you know what? You're pitching to get a couple $1 million in venture capital money, which is something that people come to me for. It's $599 to do 3 one-hour sessions with me. And normally they say, how do I sign up? Because if you're serious about pitching to get a couple $1 million in venture capital money, you've probably invested a couple $100,000 into your product or service. So for someone to say, I can help you with your pitch for $600, that's pretty easy for them to say yes to. And if they can't, then they're not a good client for me right now.
So it's almost like a self-selecting kind of criteria that you have for the right clients for you as well.
Exactly. I had another person come to me, and she really is not making a lot of money right now. She walks dogs for a living. She's a dog walker, and she needs to raise her rates. And she wanted to work with me. And I said, look, I think you need to have a little bit more money in the bank. Focus on raising your rates and then come back to me when you're comfortable. Because I don't want to take somebody's last $600. There have been times in my life where $600, it could have been $6,000 because I was really broke. So that's the other piece of it too, is being able to say, you know what, this is not the right opportunity for you right now. And I think once I got clear with the people that I wasn't going to work with, everything changed for me.
Yeah, I love that. And what I love about this 15-second pitch is just what you said there, which is it almost gives you this as a byproduct in some respects, but a very powerful one, this additional kind of focus and clarity about who you are, what it is you're offering and to whom. Could you talk to me a little bit more about that and how you perhaps use your intuition to select the right clients?
I'd say 95% of my clients are referred to me through current clients or people that I know. So someone like my friend Arielle Hyatt that I've known for years, she's going to send really good clients to me. And what I do is I offer them, and everybody says I'm crazy. They're like, you're crazy. This isn't a good use of your time. I offer them a 1-hour session where I will ask them a lot of different questions about what they want to do. Because what I know is most of my clients will work with me for a long time. They'll work with me once a week for months or years. So I want to make sure that this is a good fit for both of us. If I met you at a networking event, and this has happened many times, and you said to me, oh, I'm unhappy with my corporate job. I'd really like to work with kids. I'd like to work with a nonprofit that helps kids, but I need to work part-time from home, and I need to make a minimum of $200,000 a year. I would say to you, I don't know about jobs like that. That's not something I can help you with. I would tell them that clearly. If you want a situation like that, you need to build it for yourself. Because I don't know any nonprofits that are offering $200,000 a year to work part-time from home. I wish I did.
Yeah, I think they're pretty rare.
Yeah.
Talking about your own transition there, that's a really interesting scenario. I mean, obviously, you've made that shift yourself from the corporate world into working for yourself.
Yes.
Going back to that time, can you remember some of the challenges that you were up against and how you overcame them?
Well, one of the main reasons why I took a corporate job, it's not that I ever really wanted a corporate job. It's because I knew that eventually I would work with corporate clients, and I wanted to really understand what it was about. And those were very unhappy times for me because there was a lot of time wasted in meetings where nothing got done. There was a lot of time wasted where people would come over to your desk and chat with you. I just felt it was really inefficient. So the corporate world was not good for me. And there were times when it would have been way easier for me to come in at 10 a.m. and work until 8 at night. But that wasn't, you had to be there at 9, and people would eat lunch at their desk. It was a very depressing situation. Not all corporate jobs are like that. Some of them are okay and good and provide support for people. But for me, I found it was very stifling. Sometimes you have to deal with people. You'd have to deal with clients that you didn't like what they were doing. You didn't respect what they were doing. But you had no choice because it's the company's client. So you had to service those clients, which I found to be very exhausting at times.
Yeah. And how does that contrast with the lifestyle that you have today?
Oh, it's night and day because I only work with the people that I want to work with. That took a couple of years. And that means that there are times, this past August, for example, everyone I knew, their sales were down. So they would call me up, Laura, it's really bad. Well, it was really bad for me too. August was really bad. So you don't have that comfortable corporate paycheck. That's one positive thing about working in the corporate world. You have that paycheck. And if you have a month where there's almost no money coming in, that's kind of a hard situation to deal with. But still, for me, it's better than having to deal with people that, I don't really respect and I can't really get behind what they're doing.
That makes sense, because you wouldn't really, when you've got to the situation or the position that you're in right now, you wouldn't really want to work with clients which you're not going to resonate with.
Right.
Going back to that time around 2002, 2003, when you hit upon this idea of the 15-second pitch, can you remember that time? Was it something that it kind of hit you in a flash, like an aha moment, or was it something that evolved over time?
Well, the defining moment, or part of the defining moment, was 9/11. So it was September 11th in New York City, and the economy changed overnight. The reality changed overnight. People were walking around just weeping openly in the streets. It was a very dark, depressing, awful time. And what happened was, before 9/11, people had businesses where they designed party dresses, or they did fancy events, or they did lots of luxury things. And after 9/11, no one wanted that. Nobody wanted to think about a fancy party or a nice polka dot dress. They were trying to get through the worst thing that's ever happened to a lot of different people. So the climate changed, And what I noticed, I was someone who was usually well connected. So people started calling me up and they said, well, what do you know? Laura, I need a job. I'm really hard up. Things are really bad. Who do you know? And for the first time, I really didn't know anyone. I really didn't have any place to send them to. And they would say, well, I'll work at Starbucks. I'll work wherever. And the problem with that theory is, guess what? There are already a lot of people that work at Starbucks that are trained to work at Starbucks. Those jobs are a lot harder to get than people think. It used to be, I'll just go work at Starbucks. I'll just go waitress. Those are hard jobs. Not everybody is going to be able to deal with the public like that. So what I noticed was I said, well, I was kind of in between things myself. So I said, okay, let's sit down. Let's meet. Let's come up with some ideas. Let's figure out some things that you could do. So I would meet with people and they would tell me that they felt better after our session. Like, I feel better. I have some ideas. This is really good. So I did that for a while. And then I started to think, you know what? I need to think about charging for this, which was really, really uncomfortable. And how that came about was someone, she met with me a couple of times. She said, I have to pay you for your time. This isn't right. And she took out $30 in crumpled bills and she made me take her money. I said, you don't have money. It's okay. It's really okay. She's like, no, I wouldn't feel right if I didn't give this to you. She really gave me a gift, way beyond $30 because I said, okay, what I'm doing is valuable. This is somebody that this is a lot of money for them right now. And they feel like they want to give this to me. So I'm going to start really thinking about doing this. That was the beginning of me charging, but I still wasn't consistent. I was still giving things away. I was being inconsistent. And so I struggled for a long time. The minute I stopped giving it away, the minute I stopped doing any kind of barter deals, my business took off.
That's fascinating. So what was it that provoked you to stop doing that? Was there a particular pain point or something that inspired you to consistently start asking for the sale?
I felt that I really knew that I could give people value and I had to, I can't tell you, I can't say, hey, Rob, you need to charge $150 an hour for what you're doing. I can't tell you that if I'm not doing the same thing. So if I'm going to encourage my clients to try to get a raise or try to get a better job or try to get more sales, I need to do that too. So that's when things really shifted. And I also realized I had to call myself out too. I said, I do a lot of barter deals for things that I wouldn't pay for. I really had to get clear on that. It's like, you know what? This is nice. This is cool. I never would have paid your asking price for it. And people did the same with me. Oh, well, if it's free, then I can take it or leave it. I'm going to reschedule my session with you 6 times. I'm not going to take your advice. And it devalues what I'm offering and it devalues what you're offering. So for me, I don't ask anyone to do anything for free for me. If I don't have the funds, I'm just going to do it myself. But I'd rather pay someone to build my website and to do my headshots, things like that. I'd rather pay them and pay someone really good to do it right the first time than to try to put together a barter deal. Barter deals end up being very expensive. That's what I learned. That's one of the main things I learned in business.
Expensive in what ways?
Expensive in that they take up a lot of your time and energy, and there can be some real miscommunications. So what I've noticed is people are sometimes very sloppy about their barter deals. Oh, I'll do this and I'll help you with that. They're very casual about it. And then a lot of misunderstandings crop up later. So I had a friend of mine who was going to get sued over a barter deal. That's how badly it went. The person was so unhappy with the situation. They said, I'm going to sue you for what you should have paid me to do this work. I said, you know what? If you're going to do a barter deal, treat it like $1 million deal. Be that clear about what you're offering and what you're getting in return. And the other thing is that people are going to always prioritize paid work. That's just how it is. That's just the nature of the beast. So the minute your web designer or your photographer or the person that's going to write your website content, they get a paid gig, your barter stuff gets put on the back burner. So I think it's good. If you can't pay for it, learn to do it yourself. Otherwise, save up so that you can pay to hire someone to do these things for you.
In your experience there, what have been some of the big benefits of paying other people to do the work for you?
Oh, you get high quality results. So my website, I had this crappy website that I really couldn't afford to have a good website. And I said, I'm just going to put this up for a couple months and then I'll pay to do something better. And years went by. And I didn't even want to send the website to anyone, but I was getting PR, so I had to. And people were looking at the website like, oh, this looks like it's from 1998. It's really bad. I knew I had to pay someone. And the value of paying someone was this. I said, Craig, how long is it going to take you to do my website? And be honest. And he said, 1 week. And I said, there's no way. I said this to myself, there's no way. I've never seen a website turn around in 1 week, but I'm like, okay. He's hungry. He's just launched his business. I'm going to go for it. My website was up in 3 days. That's worth it.
Yeah. And how did you feel after that experience?
How did I feel? I felt like, okay, I'm ready to get out there and really pitch what I'm doing. I'm ready to go get PR. I'm ready to, the website reflects the value that I bring to the table. The photos look good, I think. The only bad thing is, I tell Irina, the photographer who did my headshots, I'm like, I look like shit usually, and I'm never going to look as good as you made me look in the pictures. But yeah, you feel like you're playing at a higher level when your website looks good, your photos look good, your copy is good. You don't have that hesitation that I had for years and years. I was holding myself back for years and years because I didn't know what to do with my website. Well, hire somebody that knows what they're doing and have them turn it around in 3 days, Yeah,
absolutely. What's fascinating to me here, listening to you talk about all of this stuff, is with the work that you do, with the work that you do with your clients, and with that turning point there with your website, for me, it very much sounds like you're helping other people with their own confidence, but you also had a turning point in your own confidence. You strike me very much as a confident person. Has that always been the case?
No. Absolutely not. I was the shy person in school, which people laugh about because obviously I've gotten over that hurdle. I was very, very shy. So I didn't like to talk in class. I was the weird kid in high school. I was the weird girl with the fishnet stockings and the leather skirt that, everybody else had their polo shirts on. It was very conservative. So I think getting comfortable with that discomfort, I knew I couldn't fit in. I just knew, I'm like, this is not going to work out for me. So I just decided I'm going to be different. I'm going to be the weird person. I'm going to listen to The Cure. I'm going to have big spiky hair. That's just who I am. And that's who I'm going to be. And I remember having a lot of late night conversations with my parents and them saying, you make your life harder than it needs to be. You stand out. People are going to make fun of you. People are going to talk about you. You make your life harder than it needs to be. And I just felt like I can't be this other person. I really couldn't be that other person. And, I do know a lot of people that tried to fit in, and I think their lives were even harder because they got picked on, they got bullied, they got made fun of because they didn't fit this ideal, this jock ideal, jocks and cheerleaders, football, that sort of thing. They didn't fit into that realm either. So for me, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to be weird, and that's how it is. And that really benefited me because if you're going to walk on stage in front of 100 people and present, I think that having been in the limelight in a negative way prepares you to, not be as afraid when you have to speak in public in the future.
Yeah. That's fascinating to me there, how you've managed to take what was your shyness and turn that into a superpower in that sense.
Yeah, I was just so afraid all the time. I was very afraid growing up. I was just so shy. So at a certain point, I think in high school, I said, I'm going to do things that scare me. So I'm 5'2". I'm not the thinnest person in the world. So I said, I'm gonna join the track team and I'm gonna be a hurdler. Like I'm gonna jump hurdles, which is the dumbest idea ever. But that was sort of, I said, I have to overcome these fears. I was afraid all the time. And I think that helps me connect with my clients because my clients are afraid all the time too. Even they're at very high levels. They're pitching for millions of dollars. These are the people that they'll call me crying, literally crying if a pitch doesn't go well. It's a very human thing. You would never know that if you see them present because they're able to overcome it. But I think the fact that I had to suffer a lot in my personal life, I think it makes me very compassionate towards my clients.
Yeah, that's fascinating. How does that fear show up today for you, that sense of being out of your comfort zone?
Oh, by doing interviews like this. Feeling like you're going to reveal too much or feeling like people are going to say, oh, is that all scripted? Is she reading that off a script or something? That whole authenticity conversation, which I heard someone speak recently, and she's like, authenticity, you're either authentic or you're not. You don't even need to think about it. So I think that there are people that don't like what I do, and I'm actually okay with that. There are people that say, you shouldn't have an elevator pitch. You shouldn't have a 15-second pitch. You should build an authentic relationship with the person and get to know them and go from there, which I think is great. I would love to do that. However, if I meet Ariana Huffington, which I have, I only have 15 seconds with her. I need to give my pitch, and it needs to be the best pitch that I can come up with.
And absolutely. And I think what was also fascinating to me earlier, what you said, was that the fact that you can offer this service to your clients, in some respects, they kind of defined it themselves because they were coming to you saying, can you help me with this?
Yes.
And that's what it became. So there's clearly a demand for it. So before we begin to wrap up, you mentioned 9/11 earlier. For anyone living at that time, what a time it was. Where were you at that time, and how has it changed you personally that time in terms of before and after?
I was living in the East Village on 13th Street in a very crappy, rundown apartment that didn't have heat or hot water a lot of the time. And I was supposed to go to a networking event that was a couple blocks away from the World Trade Center. And I woke up that morning and there was just something, I was just out of sorts. And I said, you know what, I'm just going to go to the office. I'm not going to this networking event. I'm just going to go to the office. And I told people this story and they said, well, it's coincidence. And maybe, but the feeling that I had that morning was a very unusual feeling. And it's made me think about trusting your gut in a very specific way. Things could have been extremely different for me if I would have been down there. And I think if there's one slightly positive thing that people have taken away from 9/11, which was just the most awful day, and especially being on 13th Street, I could see the smoke. Everybody they didn't know what to do. They didn't know what was going on. Everybody was fearful, but just trying to do the best that they could. I think the one positive thing is this. If you lived through 9/11, you thought to yourself, you know what? I am going to make a change. If I'm in a job where I'm unhappy, I have the opportunity that 3,000 people don't have anymore. So I met a woman, she worked at a law firm, and on 9/11, everybody was going home and there was chaos, and her boss gave her a stack of files to take with her. Well, since you're going home, take this work with you. And she said that was it. She was not going back to that law firm ever again. And she became an artist. And she's now a mosaic artist.
Wow.
And I said, that is a very striking example of feeling like you are getting a second chance. So everybody in the city that day that I know of, they really felt like we owe it not only to ourselves, but to the people that didn't have this opportunity to really try to go out and do something that we like doing, to not have to go to a job that you hate every single day, and to make a living doing whatever it is you want to do, you know?
Yeah. With that in mind, what does success look like for you today, Laura?
That's an interesting question. I think success is being able to help my clients do what they want to do. So if they want to get a better job, helping them do that. If they want to get interviewed on a podcast, helping them get ready for that. I think that's the most important thing for me, is helping them to do what they want to do, because then I feel that I have value in what I'm offering. You know, if I can help you do something that you didn't think you could do, I feel really good about that. I feel really happy about that. If you call me up crying and you're laughing by the time we hang up, which I can't always promise that, but sometimes it happens, and I feel you can't help but feel good about that. I couldn't imagine doing anything better than what I do, more fulfilling for me than what I do, than helping people do what they want to do.
Yeah, I love that. Looking back on everything now, what have been some of the biggest lessons and insights that you've had in your life? And what advice do you think you would give to the younger Laura?
I would say this. I used to make fun of my mom for saying this, because I would have these different jobs that I hated, you know, being a receptionist. And I'd say, what a waste of time. And she would say, everything you learn is valuable. These coping skills that you learn with stress and anxiety, this is valuable. Learning how to do search engine optimization, which I did for a client, that's valuable. I would kind of dismiss it. I don't want to do this. I want to do something else. I want to do something important. And she said, it's all valuable. And now I really see that. I really see that all these different things that I've done over the years, working at a publishing company, working at an ad agency, learning about SEO, these are all valuable for my clients, because they need to know how to do these things too. So I would tell my younger self, try not to worry so much, because you'll figure it out. I think a lot of people waste time worrying. Just choose something and start pitching it. You're going to know soon enough if it's viable. All that worry and all that planning, you could drive yourself crazy with indecision.
Yeah. So it's more about taking action rather than just thinking about these things.
Yeah. I've literally met people on the street, and they'll say, I saw you give your presentation 5 years ago. I'm working on my pitch. And I'm like, it's been 5 years, you know? So I always tell them a good pitch today is better than the perfect pitch tomorrow, because who have you encountered in the past 5 years?
Yeah.
Your pitch isn't going to be that good. It's not going to be that much better than it was 5 years ago. Start pitching now, confront that fear now, and you're going to be so much further along.
I love that. So in the context of everything that we've spoken about today, is there anything you'd like to add?
I would say that in the United States, there are something like 50 million freelancers. And by 2020, 50% of the population in the US is going to be freelancers. So you need to learn how to promote yourself if you are going to be able to survive. That's what I would really, really say. Get comfortable promoting yourself, because we're not going to have jobs at the same company for 20 or 30 years like my parents did. There's a new reality, and you need to be able to promote yourself and find new business and find good business. There are people that make a good living freelancing. They have freedom and they can do what they want to do. It's really good for them. But I think for most people, you need to get comfortable promoting yourself if you are going to make a good living for yourself in the future.
That's fascinating. Yeah, fabulous advice. So just before we wrap up then, I'd love to ask you, Laura, what's inspired you recently?
What's inspired me is, it's kind of funny. It's kind of weird. It's a fortune cookie. It's a fortune that I got, and it's so strange that I taped it up on my computer monitor. And it says, good work, good life, good love, goodbye oppression. It's the weirdest fortune I've ever gotten. It's kind of great. If everybody had that, the world would be a happier place, right? Good work, good life, and no oppression. That would be kind of a great thing. So that's been inspiring me, the weirdness of that particular fortune.
I love that. That's fabulous. What are you grateful for today?
I am grateful for heat and hot water. I went to Havana recently, Havana, Cuba, and, you know, people wait outside of the hotels, the nicer hotels, and they ask for your little shampoo bottles. They ask for whatever you haven't used. And that was a real eye-opener for me, you know, thinking about these are things you go to this hotel and you bring home the little sample size amenities and you don't think much about it. And there are people there that it's like, oh, shampoo really would mean a lot to this person. So having work that pays the rent, having a roof over my head, having a husband that cooks really good meals, it's really a great thing just to have the basics that a lot of people don't have. Clean drinking water. That's a luxury. That's beyond a luxury.
I love that. To think of it in that way is incredibly grounding, really, because everything else in that sense in our civilization and culture is a bonus, really, isn't it? So
yes.
Lovely. And what's next for you, Laura? What's 2017 about for you?
2017 is about challenging myself in the way that I encourage my clients to challenge themselves. So it's getting on bigger stages, getting in front of more people. This really is my mission, to get people comfortable promoting themselves, because I think it's really important, and especially women. Women have to get comfortable asking for the promotion, asking for a raise. We need to get a lot better at that. I think that's going to be part of what I'm doing in 2017 is getting in front of more people and trying to get the word out that if you don't ask, you're not going to get whatever it is that you're looking for. No one's going to give it to you. No one's going to hand it to you. You really got to ask for it.
Yeah, that's really inspiring. I love this idea of actually asking for help, but also stepping up to your own standards. It's all well and good giving people ideas, suggestions and advice, but actually using that information yourself as well.
Yes.
Finally, where can our listener find out more about you and your work, Laura?
They can find me on Facebook. So it's facebook.com/thepitchgirl, or on Twitter. I'm on Twitter all the time. So you can find me at thepitchgirl on Twitter. And if people have questions for me, if they use the hashtag 15-second pitch, I will answer your questions or give you feedback on your pitch on Twitter. So that's the best place for me to see what people are up to. And it also encourages people to be brief, because, you know, you got to be quick on Twitter. So put your video pitch up there, put your written pitch up there. I will give you some quick feedback. Happy to do that.
That's awesome. Yeah, I still love Twitter, and for many of those reasons. So that's great. Laura, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Rob. This is great.
Thanks for listening. Nothing beats the stories and advice of an expert to help you raise your creative game. I would love to know what you thought about today's episode, so don't forget to subscribe in iTunes, where you can rate and review the show. If you like this episode, I invite you to share it on Facebook or Twitter with the one person you know who will benefit from the wisdom shared here today. You can find the show notes on inspirationalcreatives.com/podcast. If you have a burning question or a great idea for a guest, head on over to inspirationalcreatives.com/contact, where you can connect with me there.